If you're a highly sensitive person, this conflict may seem familiar to you. You want to connect with somebody, you enjoy going deeply in that connection, but you can't maintain it for a long period of time because you can get overstimulated and need time to regroup on your own. This is an interesting challenge that all of us HSPs face in one degree or another. It may show up in your primary relationship with your partner. It may show up with friendships, or it may show up in any kind of relationship. Let's look at why HSPs have this, why it's an issue, why it's something that we need to look at, and why it's understandable. First of all, when you understand the HSP trait, there is a natural tendency for us to go deep with everything. We're wired that way. And so it's only natural that we would want to go deeply in our relationships. And especially since emotions are very important to us as highly sensitive people, and that emotional connection is something we value, then the attraction of that, the desire for that, is strong. And that's natural. Our nervous system processes emotions more deeply, and we make more meaningful connections out of normal relationships. We go deep with things. We also, as HSPs, tend to prefer one-on-one or small group interactions where we can fully engage without distractions. Again, it's in that direction of depth. And we also feel nourished by deep, heart-centered conversations rather than surface-level socialization. So this is our nature. This is who we are, and that's just the way we are. There's not much we can do about it, and it's actually a great thing. But there are some limitations. The problem comes when social connection, personal connection, becomes overwhelming. And this can be due in part to our nature, our HSP trait, but also in part due to stressful thinking that can creep into anybody's life, including HSPs. So let's look at the HSP trait first. First of all, one of the reasons that we can become overwhelmed in a connection with someone is there may be just simply too much emotional or social input. There's a limit to how much we can process. What the HSP trait does is it allows us to think deeply and experience deeply, process deeply our experiences. And when they're emotional experiences, there's a depth of processing of those emotions. So just by being who we are, we can reach the limit of our capacity at a certain point. When you're constantly processing deeply, you can only do that for so long before the system says, okay, enough, I need a break. And that's not anything off or anything that needs to be worked or worked through. It's just a physical limitation of being a highly sensitive person. Another thing that comes with the territory of being an HSP is the tendency to absorb others' emotions. This can be a mixture of stressful thinking where we start to begin to overly identify with another person, but we also just resonate. There are these mirroring neurons in the brain that get fired a lot with highly sensitive people. And so we often do experience and feel some of the emotions, not only more strongly, but we also experience other people's emotions or our version of their emotions. So this can cause overwhelm. And then in addition, when you bring in stressful thinking above and beyond the HSP trait, that's when the overwhelm can go even higher. So, for example, feeling responsible for other people's emotions, like I have to make sure everyone's okay, or I want to make sure that she's feeling better. That kind of thing is going to amplify the experience of overwhelm. And the nice thing about these stressful kinds of thoughts that we're naming right now is that they can be questioned. And that's why I always love to question things with the work of Byron Katie, or you can do this in any way that works for you. So feeling responsible for others' emotions is one thing. Overthinking social interactions, the idea of needing to handle everything perfectly, every social interaction perfectly, that's a tendency that may be innate a little bit in the HSP trait. We tend towards perfectionism, but perfectionism itself is getting into the range of stressful thinking rather than in actual nature. And so it's another thing that we can question, right? I need to handle that interaction perfectly. Is it true? And sort of lowering the bar for ourselves so that it can be less stressful. And then fear of disappointing others. If I say no, they think I won't care. That kind of thinking can creep in and can amplify the experience of overwhelm when you're interacting with somebody. So one more thing that can come in is a kind of guilt about needing space. And it's really just what I was talking about, where we need, as HSPs, we need alone time. We need time to process our emotions, to recharge. And this is healthy and this is necessary, and it's a part of being an HSP. But if there's guilt around it, then that's going to come from stressful beliefs and not the trait itself. If you worry about hurting someone you love by withdrawing, that's a stressful thought. Like, the belief may be something like, they will take it personally if I need space. They will be hurt if I need space. And these are thoughts that can be questioned directly. And so that's something that can help reduce the overwhelm and give more resilience. If I take time for myself, I might lose my relationship, right? People might think I'm just uninterested. And a belief that maybe time apart will weaken a relationship. So the thought is, if I'm not available all the time, people won't value me, or my spouse won't value me, or my friend won't value me. So these are all stressful thoughts that can be questioned, and they can already show us a way of balancing or reducing the overstimulation that can come from connecting deeply. But nevertheless, the trait is there, and there will always be a limit to how far you can go in connecting with somebody. There's going to be a point where you have to pull back out and be yourself and give yourself time to process and rest. And by the way, that's true for everyone, whether you're a highly sensitive person or not. There are limits for all of us. It's just that the HSP limit comes sooner, and so we have to pay attention to it earlier, and it may come ahead of where your partner's limit comes. And so they may be wondering, why are you needing to disappear when we're just getting started from their perspective. So how do you communicate personal space needs without guilt? We've looked at questioning the stressful thoughts. That's probably the most important thing. If I take time for myself, I'm going to hurt them, or I'm going to lose out, or they won't value me. These kinds of thoughts, when questioned in specific situations, are going to start giving you a sense of freedom on the inside. You're going to start feeling like, oh, I can take time for myself, and I don't have to feel bad about it. But there's still another step, which is connecting with the person and communicating that in a way that is honest, but also clear and not hurtful, if possible, as well. So here are some suggestions of how to express your need for alone time, for example, in a healthy way. Things like, I love our time together, and it's genuine, right? I really do. But I also need quiet time to recharge. This is just informing somebody of the limitations of your system, right? And if you're doing that, if someone can be informed and can learn about where you're at, they often can be understanding of it. But if I don't say anything, then they just can be wondering and they may start to take it personally and all of that. Or you could say, when I take space, it helps me to show up more fully for our connection. So it's like going away gives me more energy to come back and have an even better connection. This is making it more appealing to the other person, and it's also honest, and it just honors both sides of the equation. So another area is like how to set expectations from the start. This is another communication area. So letting people you love know that personal space is a part of how you function best. And you've had to learn to find that and to respect that. And just bringing that to the table, it's part of who you are, and asking them to also respect that. And there's a balance between connection and independence in friendships and in partnerships. And it's easy for anyone, really, but for HSPs especially, to honor the connection part almost above the independence part until breakdown happens. But as we get better and better at navigating this kind of conflict, if you will, this coexistence of opposites, of wanting connection and having a need for independence, a need for downtime, one finds a way to start that earlier, to like not wait until there's a breakdown, but to enjoy some connection and then enjoy some time that's independent and then go back and forth. And that builds a really nice rhythm in a healthy kind of relationship. And occasionally you'll come up against someone who doesn't respect your need for space, and that's okay too. Not everybody is going to get it. Some people just can't understand that. It doesn't make sense to them. And we all, every person on this planet, assumes that everyone else is just like them. So people that are not highly sensitive may be like, well, what the heck? That doesn't make any sense. You should just get over that, right? That's that old pattern of shame we can go into about being an HSP. So it's not about blaming them. They may not get it. That's fine. It's about just knowing that it may not be a great fit. And then finding relationships that honor your balance. And there'll be plenty of those that are possible. And it doesn't mean you have to only be in relationship with other highly sensitive people. No, there's great benefits that come from being in relationship with non-highly sensitive people. But as long as you honor each other's needs, which are slightly different. So let's now look at some practical strategies for maintaining connection without overwhelm. One of the things you can look at is mindful connection habits. So planning, having a structured connection time so that it's there and you can balance it with other parts of your life. You know that at this particular time, you're all in. And at this particular time, that all-in time ends, and you're going to be able to go to another part of your day. Not everybody lives by a super structured routine. I happen to love routine, and it works really well for me. But it is something to play with. Like, what is the limit for you? For example, this doesn't really have to do with relationship, but when I play pickleball, I play twice a week, and that's it. And so that gives a real structure to it, because if I do more than that, I start to feel like I'm not completely balanced. So the same thing, there may be time for you to have deep connection, deep conversation with someone that you love. And then you may want to put just a kind of a finite amount of time on that you can say, okay, let's leave some more for next time and come back and look forward to that. Also, you can play with alternative ways of staying in touch, sometimes leaving a voice message or writing a letter or doing a check-in that doesn't require constant socializing. We live in a social media world, and just have to find the ways that work for us that can kind of lead to certain times that are on and certain times that are off. And then we can continue questioning our thoughts about losing people by taking space. All relationships need space, and it's just a little bit more with highly sensitive people. And so when people really want to be in a relationship and they understand who you are, then they're more likely to want to honor that need for space. And actually, I find when I'm away from my partner and then I come back, we actually have more to talk about. That if we're always together, it's not quite as interesting as when there's a going apart and then a coming back and a going apart and a coming back. And finally, I just want to leave you with the idea that alone time and needing alone time is actually a strength. It's a gift to the relationship, and it's a gift to ourselves. And when we can be ourselves and be our best selves, then we have the most to give to a relationship. Relationships depend on giving. And so I have to have something inside, some energy, some creativity, some interest to bring to the relationship. And if I burn myself out, even in something that I enjoy doing, like going deep, I can end up cutting short the relationship and not enjoying it to its fullest extent.